Welcome to MaskedSwan's 101 course on why you should never pick LeBlanc. Reason number 1, she's evil.
Several days later.
Reason number 2552, Milky, pay attention. Who's the greatest mid that's ever lived?
Caps.
Close, but no, it's the GOAT, it's Faker. And Faker, just like you, thought LeBlanc was cool. And what does this look like, Milky?
Sad Faker?
Exactly, sad Faker. This is Faker after he thought LeBlanc mid was a good idea. This is why you can never, ever play LeBlanc. If Faker can't, then you can't. Got it, Milky?
Yeah.
Well, that does it. We'll have a checkup next week, and for the remainder of the week, you must not play LeBlanc.
Milky. Milky. Over here, Milky. Open the door, Milky. I'm down here, Milky. You need to play me in ranked. Play me and become more powerful than you could ever imagine. Stop laughing. Don't you leave. You listen to me. Like I'd ever do that. Ugh. What? No. 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 I can't play LeBlanc. No, this is my promise. I'll get demoted. I guess I'm gonna have to play it.
Victory!
So, Milky, have you had any compulsions to play LeBlanc this past week?
No. Not at all.
That's great to hear. I'll let Ryan know, and you've completed your psychiatric assessment successfully. Well done.
Hey you. Welcome to the eLECtric Recap, the show where we talk about everything LEC related.
I'm MaskedSwan, your resident analyst and creator of funny jokes, and your homework, ladies and gentlemen.
I've done my homework and I know that I laugh at MaskedSwan's jokes. And on that note, let's jump right on in to all of the action from week 3 of the LEC. What on earth is wrong with us?
I don't know, sometimes I question it. It's why this show works, Milky.
It is why the show works. And I mean, I did a LeBlanc skit. You were wearing glasses. It's just what we do, guys. It's just what we do. So,
Content.
do you think we should explain why we're now a duo and not a trio? Or should we just get into LEC action?
We could just do the LEC. We don't need to explain why there's nobody else here. It's just us. Games of LEC, we've got content to cover.
We have a lot of content to cover. Most specifically, 10 games to come your way. And we're going to be kicking things off with a game 1 from Friday. Misfits taking on Excel. And MaskedSwan, I'm just going to say, I've been saying every single episode that I've been a fan of Excel and that they've been looking better and better. I've been talking about, down in the jungle looking poggers, and Excel looked poggers.
Excel played this game really well. This was definitely an interesting one. I actually got a bit of insight from the owners of both of these squads, and expect a lot more from Misfits over the coming weeks. In my opinion, actually, Misfits have looked really strong. This was one of the 2 games this week that Misfits easily could have won. They were ahead during part of this game. There were parts of this game. Hyrate had an amazing early game with this Jace, and XL really misplayed and kind of gave them a lot. Obviously, I have a big problem with the LeBlanc being picked. Again, you're drafting a Jace with a LeBlanc, and I know why teams are doing this, but can we stop doing this, please? It's painful. The fact that Misfits Gaming weren't able to get all Dragon Soul, and actually XL were able to kind of capitalize and prevent them from getting that. They got the Dragons, and XL showed that they were just far better at playing around objectives. And at one point I thought I actually thought Misfits were going to win. Nope, that was not meant to be. XL came over, teamfight and won, and really, Milky, credit to XL for finding the opportunities.
I think Excel played it very well. Cho'Gath, not something that we've seen in the LEC so far this split.
Right.
It worked. I guess we can talk a little bit more about it potentially in the meta recap. Who knows? Something might be coming our way towards the end of the show. Make sure you stay tuned for that. LeBlanc picked. I mean, as you guys saw in the skit at the start, I'm now a LeBlanc one trick. I'm popping off on it. What can I say? Every time I see a LeBlanc, I'm now cheering. But let's move on from Excel Misfit things. We'll come back to Excel and Misfits on day 2, and of course, towards the end of the show when we look at the standings. And we're going to move on to our second game of the day. Mad Lions versus SK Gaming. And Mad Lions, they weren't glad lions today.
Oh, these were little kitty cats really in this game. There were no lions here. SK Gaming actually really performed very well. They drafted a comp that needed to win the early game. And when I mean needed to win the early game, if they didn't have a huge lead by the 15-minute mark, Mad Lions just win. They actually just win this game. But SK had the all-in early game. They got the 2v2 in the bot lane. Kazi fell insanely far behind in the first 3 or 4 minutes. 8 minutes into the game, they SK get another 2 kills and put bot lane of Mad Lion even further behind. And SK played the macro game and the micro game just really, really well. They Mad Lions were 9k behind at 27 minutes, and the game was ended 2 minutes later. What can you say? Credit to SK for beating Mad Lions in such a decisive fashion with a comp that needed to get ahead for me.
Well, Mad Lions, I want to actually look towards the bot lane just for a little bit because Kazi and Kaiser, they had the Tristana Rel duo, and we've all been praising Rel. We've been talking about how great Rel is as a support and how it just deletes every kind of other form of engaged support, the Leona, the Alistair, the Nautilus. And then SK Gaming come out and say, all right, we'll just play Kalista Jarvan. I mean, it took me back to last season when Jarvan and Sejuani support was kind of a thing. And SK made it work.
Yeah, this is the really interesting thing of going Moonstone, AP, Pank, all in Jarvan. It's definitely an unorthodox setup. I really like obviously Kalista Jarvan because you can flag drag. If your Jarvan is just completely out of position, you just ult him back out and either save him or you just throw him back in so he can Cataclysm again. There's a lot of familiarity, and the bot lane synergy needs to be there for this to really work out. But for SK, Kazi just was randomly near Jarvan's flag. There are a lot of moments where Treats was just able to engage onto Mad Lions when they had absolutely no right on. And that first blood that happened in the bot lane was just Treats and Jesus completely slapping the side of Mad Lions around. And Kaiser just looked a bit lost because his AD carry was just completely confused. And honestly, it felt like Kazi started running it down a little bit.
Well, Kazi definitely struggled, and we praised Kazi last season. Well, not us, but I feel the wider league community praised him for being such a strong ADC coming through in his rookie season, but showing some holes against SK.
Yeah.
Game 3 of the day, G2 against Vitality. And I remember you saying, MaskedSwan, it was you and Araya talking about G2, talking about how they had that loss to Schalke. And you said that they're going to be coming back in this week with a statement to make, and you felt sorry for whoever it was who had to play them. Well, that team was Vitality.
Yeah, and this was a sad one for Vitality. They drafted very similar, actually almost identical to what we saw from SK in the previous game. They had a Jarvan, but this time it was in the jungle. Again, you need to get ahead. They've got Renekton, Twisted Fate, Kalista. These are all champions that need to get really far ahead. Gets G2. Good luck. I mean, at least you know in the first 10 minutes of this game if you're going to win or not, if you're Vitality. And they actually came ahead against G2 for the first 10 minutes. They hit their power spike. They got their one item power spike. Looked like, and then no. No, it just was no. And we saw obviously this is Wunder playing the Quinn, where he could never win on it when he was on Schalke. Switched over to G2. 100% win rate on G2 was playing this Quinn, so that's a nice fun stack. Like we saw the crazy when G2 were able to just go 3 men into the base through the Rise ultimate just to kill 1 member of Vitality. When it was a complete mistake to do so, you should have left 1 of them in back. But Wunder was like, I'm just gonna flash over the wall and just make sure I get this kill. Kill secured. this sadly for Vitality, they fell behind they didn't get anywhere near as far ahead they needed to. Actually, you could argue they never got ahead, really. They got a few objectives and some stuff here and there, and they got a few kills, but it was never going to be enough that was going to be able to carry them against G2, and G2 just showed why they are just such a good team. And this, Milky, remember this game.
Listening.
For like 3 weeks from now, I want you to
Okay.
quiz me about this game because I guarantee this is a turning point for G2. You can quote me on this.
G2 Vitality, the turning point of G2.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you going
Watch
to
how they
reveal it in
played this
3
game
weeks?
and then watch how they're playing in 3 weeks from now. This is different. This is a different G2 now.
Okay, so what's the difference in G2? Can you tell us now, or do we have to wait 3 weeks?
So I think what we're going to be starting to see is just an improvement on overall execution. They're going to be able to far more widely play unorthodox picks, which
Okay.
they're not unorthodox. They're actually correct against the meta. What you want to do is you want to counter the meta by playing stuff that's good against the meta. G2 already showing that they can kind of do very unorthodox drafts. They're playing the Quinn. They're playing the Rise to match the
Bye.
Twisted Fate. Like these are things which are being seen in China over in the LPL, that are being seen over in the LCK, but G2 are actually bringing it to EU before almost any other team, and that's what we saw a lot from Rogue and Mad Lion in the previous seasons. G2 are just on it immediately into Spring Split. Coming into summer, like way down the line, if this
Right.
G2 keep going at this like angle, this could be better than 2019 G2.
Okay, better than 2019 G2. Best G2 that we have seen yet. Game 4 then of day 1. This is our game of the day.
Good one.
Schalke versus Rogue, and I think our viewers know where this is headed. Last week, Schalke were able to beat G2, and this week, well, Moswan, do you want to reveal what happened in the Schalke Rogue game?
Somehow they have figured it out. God Gilius himself found the Jarvan 4 pick and went, hey, what about if we don't play it with if we play it with a scaling comp and we can actually utilize the pick? Oh, Abadagi is like, what about Orianna? And Broken Blade's like, what about if I split lane? And it's like, they're just like, oh my god, guys, we figured out how to draft and we can also play our champions better than a lot of the league at the moment. Schalke won, and what fashion they did it in. Now, remember, Rogue got ahead in this game. You cannot just be like, oh, this is the Schalke show. No, for the first 20 minutes, well, actually, arguably, you could say first 22 minutes, really, this was actually Rogue's game.
Yeah.
The problem was the Baron. And the Baron game that happened. This is the moment where Neon got 3 kills. They get they get a turret for whatever that's worth. Gilius is able to get that Baron, and what do they get for all of it? Limit dies. Rogue get limit. The gold swing is just is over 4k of a gold swing from 1.1k over to like a 1.8k, I think it was lead then for the side of Schalke, and they just were able to keep pushing the momentum further and further ahead. Hans Sommer looked really good from Rogue. I don't want to discredit the Rogue players. This was actually probably, weirdly enough, top 3 teams playing against each other. Like, Schalke are actually a top 3 team. They've beaten G2, they've beaten Rogue now. They are in the top 3, Milky, and Broken Blade actually looks better than he did on TSM. I'm not joking.
Yeah, but he's in EU now, right?
He's
I mean,
savage.
I mean, have you seen how Perks looks now that he's over in C9? Sorry, just spitting facts, I tuned into one C9 game. I'm like, oh, Perks is playing on C9. Let's see how it's going. Close, all F4.
It's yeah, it's been a weird time. The mid dive that happened with 3 members for Schalke when they were able to get reset to start the Baron. I just was really happy that this game was so competitive from both sides. Like, even when Rogue were ahead, it still felt like Schalke had ways into this game, but it also felt like Rogue could close this game. This was, do I dare say it? Yeah, I think outside of what we saw from the okay, I'm gonna get I love doing my hot takes. You know that, Milky. Outside of some of the games that we saw from the lock-in tournament over in the LCS, this game, Schalke versus Rogue, might be the most competitive game we've seen in the West since the new split.
Sorry, my chair broke. My chair broke on that statement.
You're doing a
most
PewDiePie, yeah.
Wait, wait, he did that? He's just... I just can't have anything. I mean, what's the point? What's the point anymore? So, Schalke take the win against Rogue, but the
Yeah.
question that I do want to bring up is, we talked about that Baron misplay that Rogue did. If that hadn't happened, if there wasn't that huge, 5, 6k gold swing, do you think Rogue would have been able to close out the game, or do you think Schalke still had that scaling to have taken it from, what I think was a 30-something minute game to maybe a 40-minute game?
Saw Rogue get the second Baron. It just wasn't enough for them to come back. There's a good chance that if they get that first Baron and prevent the side of Schalke, even if they lose 1 or 2 members of the team, maybe even 3, it would have been enough to prevent Schalke from really starting to tighten the screws on their own composition. I think an important part was that Abuzagi never died, and there was a lot of shutdown gold that was just left on this Orianna. And Rogue seemed a pretty committed to not trying to answer Broken Blade in the side lanes for a lot of the game, and he was playing the side game pressure really well. Odawane just couldn't respond particularly well to Broken Blade. They were just getting pushed in, and it was exactly what Camille's do. And it was really nice to actually see Broken Blade be allowed to flex on this Camille, because we saw parts of it previously on TSM. I really don't want to keep bringing up that team, because my god, am I sad right now, because I am a fanboy of them, and I'm so Rogue might be my new team, but Schalke could also be that new team for me. Both these teams have been playing really well. And Milky, do you believe in Limit? Because I believe in Limit and Trimby to maybe be the support carries of the LEC.
I think Limit has been very impressive. I think Limit might have actually been more impressive than Trimby. I think week 1 from Schalke was questionable. But every time, see, I'm a man of very simple stats, right? I look at stats and I say,
What's their
2
vision
plus 2
score?
yeah, I look at stats and I say 2 plus 2 equals 3, therefore that's what this means, right? And
That's
I think Trimby has had a lot of deaths. And I think there is always going to be the question of, were those deaths, for something? Did it enable his team to be able to create something? And I remember the Seraphine game that he had. And I still have some question marks about Trimby, and I'm not saying that he's a bad support, because I think he's a good support. But off the top of my head, from what I remember, I personally think Limit has been a little bit stronger than Trimby so far.
Yeah, Limit has the fewest amounts of death in the league at the moment at 1.2 average deaths.
Wait,
And
really?
it's 1.2 average deaths per game. He gets an average of 8 assists per game. Like, he is quietly smurfing on a lot of these games. Trimley does have a higher death rate. He does die 3.6% of the time, but then he also has a higher assist rate. So he averages about 10.3 assists a game. So there is that bit of a trade-off between these two teams. But both of them actually have somewhat well, actually no, Trimby has a 3 KDA, whereas Limit does have that 4.3. So like, it definitely, what you're saying absolutely hits in line with the numbers. And I think that's actually a very fair analysis. I think Limit is probably might be the best support player at the moment in the LEC, which well,
Vanda?
if you look, what Vanda's not having a great time. He's got pretty awful stats when you look at deaths, kills, and assists and
Yeah,
everything else.
but come
His
on.
average gold is he's always further behind the average experience. Oh no, actually, he's ahead of a lot of different champions when it comes to experience. He's just always behind on gold. Which
But that's because he's playing on Misfits. And Misfits have been a bunch of Misfits lately.
yeah, but like, that's part of the reason why he's getting great experience numbers, because his team is always dead half the time. So like, what do you want me to say, Milky? Like, yeah, Vanda gets more experience than any other support in the league, because all their other supports have to actually share their experience. No, they have to share the experience with their teammate. Their AD carry isn't dead half the time, and also they can't just go into another lane and just soak experience up, because half of them are dead. Like, yeah, Vander has got like great experience score, but the only person that beats him is Treats. And I'm not surprised.
But
Treats is beating him.
this is where we get to the point where stats aren't everything, right?
No, they're not.
And
And we
it's
can't
like
do
how
results orientated thinking, of course.
exactly. And it's like the argument that I used to have with people who watch football who I won't say anymore. But they'd always go off, for example, oh, this guy's got the most goals in the league, therefore he's the best striker. And it's like, no, he's not. But it's like, you buy a striker to score goals. I was like, yes, but if he has 50 scoring opportunities and he only scores 10, and someone who had 12 scoring opportunities scored 9 of them, I'd rather have the second guy. But so there's a lot of context that has to be brought up. And I
I
personally think when I've seen Vander play, I think he's done a lot of good stuff. And I think as well in the game against Rogue, with Misfits against Rogue, I think he showed his experience over Trimby. And yes, Misfits lost, but I think Vander clearly showed that there was a support difference in that game. Now, let's move on from that fourth game to
sure.
our fifth game of the day because MaskedSwan is no longer MaskedSwan. He's now Stats Swan. He's got so many stats all lined up. God knows where he's getting them from. Probably God Gilius is providing them for him. Fifth game of the day, Astralis versus Fnatic. Now, we had the analyst from Astralis last week here, and Araya was talking about how Astralis would be coming back with a bang. Again, not falling back, always willing to take fights. And I was super impressed with how Astralis played against Fnatic. Yes, they
Mhm.
did lose, but there were so many positives. And to be honest, at various points in that game, you wouldn't be surprised if, you had a time leap 10 minutes and you got told that Astralis had won the game.
I'm really happy Oriar isn't here. So
Oh no. Oh no.
both of these teams played horribly. Okay?
Okay.
This was
Yep.
not this was a fun if you turn off your brain, if you turn on
Yep.
I'll turn off the part of you where you analyze and want to try and
Yeah.
understand every little micro thing that's happening.
So how I set my brain when I watch Sword Art Online.
Exactly, just like
Okay.
that.
Yep.
Or when I decide I want to watch just LCS. That's what I do.
Okay. Yeah.
You understand.
Yeah, I got you.
This game I watched 3 times. 2 times I had to turn off my brain because the first time I watched it, I was molding. This was not a good game by either of these teams.
Right.
Now,
Okay.
what's good for Astralis with me saying this is, well, if they're able to bring down Fnatic to like the same, or Fnatic are at the same place that Astralis is, that's a good thing for Astralis. If Fnatic
Right.
are looking as temperamental and more invested in throwing games than Astralis is, because let's be real, Astralis didn't throw this game. Astralis were given the game, and then Fnatic came back into the game because Fnatic is just kind of better players in each of their own individual positions. But my god, this was a pretty horrible game from Fnatic to win. This was not done in clean fashion at all. And the fact that they were 8k ahead and then they still lost 3k at the end just because they lost a bunch of members to Shutdown Gold is not good. This is not a
Okay.
clean showing from Fnatic. And honestly, I'm going to double down with you, Milky. I saw far more promise from the side of Astralis this game than I actually saw from Fnatic. Fnatic disappointed me. Astralis surprised me.
Okay.
And I'm going to stick with that to be my main stance. White Knight had a great game, by the way. He quietly was having a great game against Bwipo. But then Bwipo, they went for that 2-man dive in the first 4 minutes. I was like, the fact that Astralis were even able to come back in this game was wild. But then Fnatic do what they do, and it was it
Wait,
was
you just reminded me. This was a game of like 5 failed dive attempts, wasn't it? From
yes,
both sides. Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes. This is
Okay.
why I'm
Okay.
saying that. Does that make sense now?
Let's ignore that. But I want to turn the negatives into a positive, if that's possible. Right.
Okay.
The way I want to kind of
Listen.
structure this is you get games where we talk about Astralis' previous name, Origin, where they'll play a slow game to 40 minutes, right? But then you also get the games, and what I would like to define it as is how I personally thought when I first started seeing G2 play once they got the whole new roster. You can play this really aggressive style of play where it looks crazy, it looks scrappy, it looks like the teams are
Mm.
all over the place doing stuff. But then you'll notice after 5 minutes, you'll realize, hang on, all of this stuff that someone like G2 had done, all of this scrappy stuff that looked like it had no coherence, all starts to form a picture. It's like they put loads of puzzle pieces down, and then everything starts to link up. It all starts to fit. It all starts to come together, as
There's
the
a
old
bigger
meme goes.
plan. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that Astralis or Fnatic necessarily had this plan, but by being able to go into those scrappy routes, you do get these games where it looks like both sides just don't know what they're doing and they are just fighting.
Hmm.
But if you are a team like Astralis who might be able to make other teams play like that, and that is your style of play, it can work out so well. And I think it's really crucial that teams are able to force the other team to play how they want to play rather than playing how the other team wants to play, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's actually very fair. Something of worth of note, at least,
Yeah.
from when I last looked. And I might be wrong now. By all means, I might be wrong. But yeah, no, Fnatic have the quickest game time just in the LEC outside of
Yeah.
anybody else. They on average will finish their games at the 29 to 30-minute mark. No one else comes even remotely close outside of SK and Mad Lion, who finish a few minutes later on average. Astralis, they normally play 35-minute slogs. So this is Fnatic well and truly just always with this ceaseless aggression. And the problem that Fnatic keep finding is that even versus arguably, if you just look at the standings, arguably lower level teams, they just get put themselves in precarious positions where we honestly saw great opportunities from the side of Astralis and White Knight specifically finding spots where he had no right
Mm.
to be able to get double kills, no right to be able to impact the game as much as he did. He wasn't able to convert it into much more for them, sadly. But Fnatic need to go back to the
Yeah.
drawing board because this is alarming to say the least.
Well, that was the last game of day one. Moving on to the first game of day two. Schalke back in it against Misfits. And Schalke showing that maybe they're even the best team in the league right now.
There's a chance. Again, this is a game for Misfits where I'm like, God, you're just so close. I do really believe in this Misfits team. Hyrit
Yeah.
specifically, I love, but in this game, Hyrit was not allowed to play this game. He was repeatedly bullied by Gilius and Broken Blade. This was where they were repeatedly ganking, even after Hyrit did get that first blood. No more. You're going to get slapped around this. No, and he promptly was. The lane that looked like it was going to be able to do something wasn't able to. And I'll be honest, even while Misfits were behind, they're still playing really well, which makes me think that there is a world where Misfits go 2-0, and this is that other game. While they lost their day one, this is another game where Misfits, even though they are a 2 and X team at the moment in the standings, and we'll cover that more a bit later, there's a world where they could have easily gone 2-0 this week. However, Schalke, God, Gilius is just everywhere. Abadagi is really flexing their muscles, playing the Echo mid, which I love. I want more people to do stuff like Echo is a good assassin in the meta. And you know
And
why?
it's counter to Syndra.
Exactly. As opposed to these LeBlancs that keep getting picked, because the other problem with LeBlanc is she doesn't have crowd control. She has one pick-off stun that is on a timer that people can flash away from. Can't do that against an Echo stun. If you're in the bubble, you're dead. Also, Echo can just ult and rewind time himself. So
Yeah,
that's always a fun thing.
that does help.
I really like this game from Schalke, but I actually really enjoyed this game in general. Go watch this game if you're interested in either of these teams.
And I do want to talk a little bit about Misfits because, as you mentioned, they are a 2 and something team. After week one, that Super Week, they were 2-1. They've lost their next 4 games.
Yeah.
And after that first week, Misfits looked promising. We looked at pretty much every team, and we kind of said every team looks decent. Someone we said,
Yeah.
G2 and Rogue at the top, probably then Mad Lions and Misfits, and then everyone else. Maybe Astralis at the bottom, or Vitality with them, or Schalke. We're looking at a little bit
Yeah.
shaky and flaky.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's fair.
And we talked about how close the league was. And
Hmm.
Misfits always felt like a team that were playing well, showed promise. And I felt like that's been the case in every single one of their games since then, but they just have not been able to find the wins. And the way they felt in these last 4 games is kind of how I felt about Excel in the first 3 games, where they showed promise, they were doing good things, but it wasn't working out. And well, this week we already talked about their day one performance against Misfits, and we'll talk about their day two performance momentarily. But where do we really see Misfits right now?
Misfits have had a bit of the short end of the stick here. Over the last few weeks, they played against Schalke and they've played against Rogue, right? Which we're very comfortable saying at the moment. In the early parts of this, we're seeing that these might be some of the better teams in the league. So they've had some awkward matchups playing against the better teams. Again, though, they showed promise against these better teams.
Yeah.
My concern comes when it is against XL and SK. They coin flip, they got unfortunate. These are games they definitely could have won. They didn't. But there is also a world at the moment, Milky, where this team is a 4-1 team. And how insane is that? There is a world
Yeah.
where they probably win at least 4, maybe 3, and we're like, yeah, Misfits look really good. The other teams they played against could have won these games. They're very competitive, but whatever they're not doing to just kind of figure out that last little bit to win, I hope they figure out very soon, because I'd love to see this team really flourish, because there are so many moments of brilliance they just don't quite get there.
Well, moving on to the second game was Excel against SK Gaming, and of course SK had just come off the back of that win against Mad Lions, but well, Excel are showing that they are in form and they are looking really good.
Yeah, the first 7 minutes of this game was a really, really boring 7 minutes. Nothing happened. No objectives were taken. No
Yeah.
kills happened. But Milky, this is a 29-minute game on the dot. So for 7 minutes, nothing to happen is really crazy. XL get really early map control at the 7 minute mark. They basically force an early trade. They force blue. No, they force treats out of the river, meaning that they were able to take river control. They got the first dragon, and this was just slowly showing XL's map control and just awareness really on point. XL did an amazing job in a lot of these team fights. Cries, I need to shout out this Gragas. One single-handedly got them the dragon soul in that fight. That was phenomenal. He blind casketed, forced back the rest of forced back, I think it was Jezu, out of the fight, which just completely screwed up what SK was planning to do for that.
Yeah.
XL get Dragon Soul. They only lose their support, and they don't lose anything else. Oh no, it was Dragon number 3 when Cries gets the crazy Gragas ult. Dragon number 4, they just get the soul and run out and only lose Tor, which they're more than happy with doing. And then they Baron bait, get the ace, and end the game. This is really promising. This is high level stuff that the side of XL is doing, and it was done very well versus a team like SK, who we already credited. Well done for beating Rogue. This is very competitive, this team.
It wasn't Rogue that they beat. It was. I'm just.
But
Trying
they
to remember now.
they previously beaten Rogue as well. Sorry, I was using that point of where I was like, oh, XL and SK both Rogue teams that Rogue could have beaten over the last 2 weeks. SK beat played against Mad Lions.
Yeah, on the previous day. And
sorry, Milky.
You mentioned how it was a clean game from Excel. It was probably one of the cleanest games of the entire spring split.
Yeah.
I don't know if another game comes to mind.
We did have the SK Mad Lions game from day one. That was really clean from SK, which hilariously SK got cleaned in this game. I'm just trying to think. In my head, I feel like Super Week there was another game that looked
there may have
pretty clean. If you
G2
can
Vitality from day one.
Oh, that was an SK Astralis in day one as well. Day one, week one. But
Either
basically,
way, it was XL's cleanest game. I think we can agree on
100%. Yeah, it's definitely XL's cleanest game because they've had a lot of shaky ones. And remember, they did beat Schalke in week one, and that was a tight game.
Yeah. I mean, maybe XL Schalke are just the 2 best teams in the league, and we didn't know it yet.
Maybe.
On that note, we're going to move to game 3. Mad Lions Vitality. Mad Lions coming off that defeat to the aforementioned SK Gaming, and showing that was just a blip and coming back very strong.
Yeah, this game Vitality actually had a far better early game. Their first game, it was okay, but then G2 did exactly what G2 wanted to do. Vitality actually got a lead, a very strong, decent early game. Again, they were playing a very aggressive comp. This one was slightly more scaling, but because they have that Syndra and the Kai'Sa, but even then, they've got Sneaks on this Pantheon, and Sneaks is... Sorry, buddy, you're not having a great performance in your... Skeens, sorry, thank you. On broadcast, they occasionally mess it up, so by proxy, I'm blaming other people for my own shortcomings. This game was just really disappointing from Vitality. They had a great early start, but their comp just got outzoned and outplayed in multiple sides. And the one time that Mad Lions find a good pick on Vitality, the game gets completely flipped on its head, and Mad Lions just go, we're taking your jungle, we're going to push you in here, we're going to push here. And they just showed that Mad Lions are just better at playing the macro game than Vitality is ever going to hope to play at the moment. I don't know how you solve these problems from Vitality, and this is with Kazi playing Seraphine support or carry.
Is strong.
No, she's broken, by the way.
Yeah.
I actually think that, but he's not on a carry. which is what Mad Lions typically play through Kazi for. Which it's kind of alarming that if Vitality are getting this kind of pushed out of a game, with Kazi not even being the kind of damage dealer that he typically is for the team. I'm not saying he didn't have a great performance. He had a stellar performance for a first game Seraphine that we're seeing from him. It's for the side of Vitality I'm worried about.
I just want to bring up the counterpoint because yes, Kazi went 0-0-10, no kills, no deaths. But
Perfect.
Mad Lions, and I feel that this is kind of the setup that we've been bringing up for Mad Lions for now 2 weeks, and this is the 3rd week. Well, I mean 4th week if we include the pilot show. I always get that number mixed up. But yes, Kazi is a great carry for the team, and I do not disagree with that one bit. But we are starting to see that Mad Lions are this team that when they are ahead, play really, really well and are fantastic at closing out avenues for any team to come back into the game. But when they are behind, they struggle a lot. Some of that is Humanoid getting caught out, Humanoid going for Tristana dives under a tower for a certain caps and then dying. And there's other stuff. I think Armor has been playing fantastically well. And I think Mad Lions are showing that, yes, we can play around Kazi. But I praised eLECtric after that first week, how good he was. And I think Mad Lions are showing that they can play around that jungle mid-top just as well as they can play around the bot lane as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think eLECtric is coming far more into their role week on week with this roster. Remember, this is his rookie debut, and this is the performance he's having. I think you make a great point. They have been struggling when they have been behind, but this is still a team that is 4-3 currently in the standings. They're playing really solidly when they do find it, and Vitality gave them an inch, and Mad Lion said that's not a kilometer. That's not even the moon. I want to go to Mars with Elon Musk, and they went there. And eLECtric is a very important part, especially in this game where he ended the game going 6-1-4. He basically brutalized Skeens in this game when they actually popped off, and yeah, unfortunate for Vitality. I don't know how you fix their problems. There's just too many to think of.
Well, we spoke about it after the second week as well. We talked about, who have been looking like the most, actually, sorry, we said after the Super Week, who have been looking like the most impressive junglers. And we kind of brought up Trimby, the rogue support, and I brought up eLECtric because I think he is right up there. We're talking about Limit now as well. Wait, Limit's not a rookie, is he? He was playing last season.
Yeah, he was playing last season. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to double down with you on that. We'll either be both wrong together or whatever.
Yes. So yeah, I think eLECtric is right there, but we're going to move on to our 4th game and our game of the day. It's another Rogue game, Rogue against Astralis, and just off the bat, the fact that this is our game of the day, I think, is positive signs for Astralis.
100%. I actually really enjoyed this game. This was a fun, competitive, exciting game. There's a lot of different things we can take away from this game. And the fact that this game went on 26 minutes just showed the fact that Rogue didn't want to end the game immediately. But the first thing I want to highlight about this game is actually Astralis' draft. They went for something that's far more simpler. They went for the Skarner Thresh. So if Thresh lands a hook, the person's dead. But they also have Skarner ult, just click and point ult on a pyre, Lantern back to Thresh, and they're dead. This was done countless times from Astralis, and they got a lot of important picks. The problem was, for Astralis in this game, Trimby has always got this pocket blitz crank. Hung Summer can just pop off with it, and Rogue drafted pretty badly because they have no engage outside of Trimby finding a pick and then the whole team just kind of dashing in and hope. No, they have no front line. They have no front line. I'm not going to back down from this. They have zero front line. And if Astralis get the pick, if they get the Skarner pick and then decide to just engage fully, White Knight never had Meganar in a lot of these fights, which was great for them.
I'm not going to deny that they don't have a front line, but I think saying that they don't have engage is wrong. You've got Odo Amne on a cannon.
Yeah, how is Cannon meant to get into the middle of the team?
Flanks.
Whoa, then you are playing around your opponent misplaying, which I don't think is respectful.
The other thing is, I think the engage and utility offered by Lilia is so underestimated. I think everyone talks about how good Lilia is a champion, but I think every time it's brought up into conversation, people forget, hey, Lilia has on a 10-second cooldown. literally pretty much a 4-man sleep that's available if she lands it.
Yeah, and to be credit where credit's due, Rogue got a lot of their wins off of Inspire's Lilia here. Jumping in, getting at least 2 or 3 man sleeps typically, which was just enough because they've got Larson and
And then
Han
it's easy
Summer who
for
are on these
Odoamne.
Lucian. Yeah, and Oda once they were able to get it, they got huge CC chains. They were able to execute their very, very different comp. Well, it's a very difficult comp, especially versus
I agree
Astralis.
on that. Yeah.
But they were able to do it. It does show hope. The problem for Astralis is that while they did get a decent early lead with the 3 dragons and the early kills,
Mm.
the gold was still even, but that's okay. They needed to get that 4th
That's just
Drake.
Rogan, Chovy, Larson, right?
Exactly. It really is. And Rogue getting two dragons, then getting 2 kills, then getting a dragon, and then pushing Astralis really out this game, and then Rogue getting 14 kills in the first 10 minutes, and only have they've only died 4 times.
Yeah.
It's like, oh god, and they're gonna only die 2 more times really in this game, and it's gonna be 2 more times of them on Blitz. Like Trimby's going to die, but they're probably gonna get a lot more. I was watching this game back, and I was like, oh god, this is Rogue giving Astralis the business after they had the early lead. I can't remember which Dragon Soul it was, and I think that did affect this game for me. Oh, it was Cloud Soul. Yeah, that was a really unfortunate one because whilst that, no, it wasn't Cloud, was it? I can't remember. It doesn't matter actually. I just remember it being a less impactful soul, and it didn't assist Astralis hugely in this game.
My camera
You
did
okay
some
there?
funny things.
No.
Sorry. It didn't like what you were talking about. It knows the game that's about to come up and it wasn't liking it.
Hmm.
Final point I want to bring up, and then we will move to game 5. Promise Q.
Hmm.
He has not been promising. Pardon the pun. Don't pardon it. I'm glad I used it.
You've
On
been waiting to
G2,
use that.
on G2, when he subbed in for Mickey, he didn't look bad. He looked decent, and he thought this is a good support. On Astralis, I'm feeling that it's the same kind of thing that we're seeing with Trimby, but every single game. He always seems to have a huge, huge death tally. And I'll be honest, I'm not clued up enough to know whether it's him consistently making mistakes or him catching out Jessica, who's making mistakes. I want to see the guy perform. Maybe it's because he lost the hair. Maybe it's because he lost the big beard. I don't know what's going on.
I Promise Q is a really interesting player to watch in a lot of these games because you can see the idea of the playmaking potential. You can still see that kind of hungry G2 fire still a part of them, which will just be like, I want to just go for it, and if I get back up, we're gonna go in as a team. He's not on G2 anymore. The team won't just immediately back him up if he goes for some crazy play. Astralis are a different roster, and their play style is very different. They are far more controlled when they want to play a game.
So
That style isn't really working for Astralis, so maybe they should play more around Promise Q. I don't know.
So I just kind of want to get like more of a definitive answer. Do we think that this is not a case of Promiscu necessarily being bad,
Hmm.
but that his playstyle is not fitting with Astralis?
Confirm with me next week. I'd like another.
Okay.
No, confirm with
Yeah.
me next week because I want
Okay.
2 more games to
Sure.
definitively say
Okay.
this. At the moment, though, I don't know if he's fitting in. It does look a bit disjointed from the team roster on the moment. And this is just jungle support not really being a good duo at the moment. And this was a game where they should have just won through jungle support. Zazara
Yeah.
on this Skarner, Thresh Lantern. This is against a very squishy comp. This should just be, hey guys, I'm going to ult this guy. You Lantern me. White Knight then comes in from anywhere. They can come just walking forward to them with Meganar, and the rogue have to back off. And then they just go, oh, okay, well, we have Jessica on this Caitlyn. We will just take a tower. And you just do that 3 or 4 times and you'll win a game. Or force rogue into a spot where they have to flip, but they're not doing a good flip because you've already cleared out the vision around the dragon, around the baron. They didn't do that. This was a game that Rogue just kind of outplayed Astralis in a few different spots, and I'm a little bit concerned about Promise Q because I would argue Zanzara was finding the picks. But what was happening after that wasn't great.
Okay. We'll leave it there and move on to our 5th game of the day. And this was Fnatic versus G2. Now, Fnatic took the win, and we'll talk about issues and all of that in a second. But there's one thing that really annoys me, and this is about, in general, every time Fnatic play against G2, right? It doesn't matter if G2 are currently on, the biggest high ever and Fnatic are on the lowest low, or vice versa. You always get this comment that kind of annoys me somewhat, which is, it's G2 Fnatic. None of the previous games matter. And I feel like that's a very lazy way of saying, hey, look, G2 are playing Fnatic. This is now going to be a close game because all of the issues that happened before no longer exist. And I understand that there are bogey teams, you have it in all kinds of sports. But that happens for a reason. It's because one team has a specific kind of play style that can counter that other team. For example, going back a few years, the thing that comes to my mind is Newcastle playing, 10 men behind the ball or whatever it might be.
A more relevant
Yeah.
one for League. DRX versus Down 1 at Worlds. There was just no way for DRX to ever beat Down 1 because they had played more games than anybody else in the league.
Yeah. And it's something that I've found myself in chess tournaments. You've probably had it in Magic tournaments.
Yeah.
You can be way better than another player, but because that person plays a specific style, it just inherently is something that you struggle with.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
don't think that's necessarily the case for G2 Fnatic, and I feel like that's a very lazy excuse. So that's what I kind of want to bring this game up with. That's the storyline I want to put behind it.
I think that's a very fair point. I think especially as there are just two new members, especially on the side of Fnatic, that this rivalry or kind of beef is far it just doesn't mean as much now. Perks
Yeah.
isn't around. He was a big reason why it had been going on for so long,
Yeah.
because he was a part of that original roster that started this. Not many of these other members on G2 were around. I think Mickey was. I think Yankos came in pretty early, but Wanda came in a bit later, as did Caps. Obviously, he was previously Fnatic, and that's part of the reason why there is that beef. It's because, Caps left Fnatic, and yes, they were already doing this finals rivalry beforehand, but then Caps moved over, and I'll be honest, over the last year or two, it's just been like, well, G2 is just the better team, and they're kind of still running on that narrative. So I agree with you. This game was a weird one, though. And can you give the clarification for the audience on why it's a weird one?
So essentially what happened is G2 got beat. They got beat fairly comfortably, I want to say. It was a scrappy game, but after I feel about 15 minutes, Fnatic kind of just took control.
Yeah.
Apparently, G2 were having issues with their internet and they were suffering very bad packet loss, is what has been tweeted out. And apparently, the game was unplayable, reported by several of the G2 members. And that's why it's really kind of weird. And it's like we're on this line to talk about it because are Fnatic better? What parts of the issues from G2 were G2 playing badly, and which bits were G2 having internet issues?
Yeah, so this is a really awkward one. It seems like I'm having the G2 internet
Yeah,
issues at the moment on my
you're right there.
face. I'm okay here. I'm just a little bit pixelated, mate. It is what it is. Yeah, when a game like this happens and apparently one of the teams is reporting huge packet loss, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Part of this is due to the fact that obviously some of these players were playing from different locations and they weren't all forced to come into the G2 compound or whatever they have for the head office. Yeah, it's unfortunate that happened. But the staff at G2 have very much taken and said that is our fault. The players, this is nothing to do with the players. There was that play in top lane where Wanda died in a 1v1 versus Bwipo, and I was like, what are you doing, Wanda? You just missed that hook, and if you land that hook, you win this fight. And it's like, well, maybe if he's experiencing some packet loss, that is why, because that shouldn't be happening for Wanda. He shouldn't be making small little mechanical mistakes like that. He's better than that. He is. And yeah, this was just a really sad game. Like my notes for this is this game made me sad. I can put more, but me very sad. Like me very sad. Me mad.
And
me sad.
the thing that I want to bring up, and I'm in no way trying to discredit Fnatic's
No.
victory, although in the process I kind of am. G2, every time they've made mistakes, they've owned up. They said, we play trash, we're idiots. Grabs has said, I inted draft, blah, blah, blah. This is the first time I didn't see the games live. I ended up going on Twitter and I just saw some, you could tell the passion and emotion behind the tweets from G2. And you could see that they were visibly upset or you could read that they were visibly upset, that the fact that they were getting called out on something that they clearly felt that they had absolutely no control over.
This is one of the few times I've really seen Wonder be negative on Twitter,
Mm.
when he's not talking about a WoW drop, like like on it, like, and he doesn't tweet about that very often.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was visible, well, not well, visibly on Twitter at least,
Yeah.
very angry at what happened. He was like very disappointed at the packet loss. He's like, lost to packet loss. Can't believe this. Like, you can tell that these players are frustrated. The staff was frustrated. And yeah, I think that's actually a very good point. G2 normally don't. They normally clown around about it and say, actually,
Yeah.
we lost this game. This was
Yeah.
our fault. This is the first time that I've really seen any team kind of blame outside interference that was this packet loss, and that the fact that G2 have already doubled down on it, going that this game just isn't a representation of our ability. I think that's fair. Though, in credit for Fnatic, Niski was landing amazing Trima shuffles
Very
on
true.
this Azir. Selfmade had a phenomenal game on this Talia. Bwipo was doing insane damage on this Volibear. He was a huge bear and pretty much single-handedly put Upset on their back. Because I'll be honest, Upset didn't do a lot this game. Bwipo was the #1 carry with Niski doing crazy shuffles, and Hilly existed in this game. Not really that impactful, I'll be honest. Pretty good thing that there was packet loss from G2 and Mickey wasn't able to do a lot of engaging and countering on this Alistair. I'm gonna still be honest.
I'm still going to bring up that Mickey, the failed G2 dive that they tried to do on the
that
bottom
was so
tower.
bad.
Because that was just miscommunication. Mickey just got left. Maybe it wasn't packet loss, and we kind of joke about it, but at the same time, we don't know what exactly was caused by internet issues. It could have been the entire game. It could have been 5 minutes of gameplay. We don't know. And I think on that note, we should probably leave it there. Leave it as Fnatic took the win. Fnatic played well to take the advantages of the mistakes that G2 were making, regardless of whether those were mistakes that G2 made themselves or were caused by outside sources. And we'll have to wait a few more weeks before we get the actual G2 Fnatic that I'm sure a lot of fans are very hyped for, and
Not in the
have had
finals again.
stolen
I'm
from
done
them.
with that.
Yeah, it's not happening in finals. It's gonna be G2 versus Rogue. In fact, it's probably gonna be Rogue Schalke in the finals. There we go.
Thinking that.
Oh. What's gonna happen is G2 and Rogue, they're gonna get knocked out in semis. Schalke XL final. Let's go.
Oh, let's go. I'd be up to that. All
I'd be
right,
up for
Milky.
it. Yeah, that'd be hype. So
That would
hype.
be. Yeah, got Gilius in the finals, where he always is dreamt to be and deserves to be.
On that note, though, let's take a quick recap, a quick rundown of the results from day 1 and 2. XL took the win against Misfits on day 1. SK beat Mad Lions. G2 took the win against Vitality. Schalke beat Rogue. Fnatic took the win against Astralis. Day 2, Schalke win against Misfits. XL taking the win against SK. Mad Lions beating Vitality. Rogue with the win against Astralis. And Fnatic with the win against G2. And the standings are now as such. Two-way tie for second. Rogue still at the top, but from Rogue to XL, all 4 of those teams look like clear top spot contenders, really.
Yeah, I will be honest. Rogue obviously leading the pack at the moment, but Schalke, G2, and Schalke and G2 are having really well performances. You got me with the XL. You got me with that, what you previously said. But XL and Mad Lions specifically, I think are actually really showing up and showing why they could be counted. Fnatic, I've got fundamental concerns and problems with, which I've already talked about in their games, but if they can keep beating G2 and it looks a lot stronger and their performance continues to keep improving, there's hope. But this, I'm a little bit worried for them. I will be honest.
Okay. Well, on that, I think the only 2 teams that are kind of looking shaky, looking questionable, Astralis and Vitality. I think Misfits, we already talked about them. They have promised, but Astralis and Vitality, you're going to come back next week and we're going to talk more about Promise Q. We'll have the Promise Q segment next week. But the Vitality segment, what's going on? Is there an easy fix for them?
This team is just all over the place. Their drafts are a bit all over the place. They can get a good, strong lead in the early game. I think the best way to really identify where Vitality are falling apart is that Mad Lions game that they had in week 3. They got ahead. They're playing a comp that wants to get ahead. They got ahead, and then they lose a team fight, and then they lose so much through it. And you can just see the difference and the level of play between Vitality when they have a lead, and then a team like Mad Lions, who's a middle of the table team at the moment.
Yeah,
Mad
they're bang in the
Lions
middle.
can find any and all ways to really, okay, we've got a lead. Let's try and push this lead as much as we can in the amount of time allocated to that we can do this, right? Vitality
Yeah.
get a lead, get a few kills, get an objective, and they're like, okay, guys, let's reset and then let's fight them again as if we're the exact same as them. And it's like you have to be pushing any and all advantage because there's so much pressure on the jungler. And that's where I have a concern with Vitality. The
Okay.
jungler isn't stepping up. Skeens is just getting out jungled. I think there's a really
Right.
good one, but a lot of people are already identifying. Go watch his Pantheon game
Okay.
versus Mad Lions because his pathing is super peculiar. He's just all over the place. He goes for these plays and then realizes halfway through that he can't do this. Elyoya gets to just kind of brutally just take stuff from him, and he just goes, okay. And this is when he's ahead. Yeah, okay, he can't fight an Olaf early game. That's not going to be a great time for a Pantheon. But if you can get some help, you have got a top laner who is more than able to do that. You have got a Gragas, you have got a Syndra. If you are getting hurt, or you can pull them and ask them to help you, communication's not there. I have more hopes from Astralis.
Okay. On that note, let's take a look at the games scheduled for this Friday and make some predictions.
My
Last
favorite
one's
part.
excited. I'm excited as well. It's a one-on-one now. Okay,
Hmm.
Schalke versus Astralis. Schalke, right?
Yeah, yeah. If Schalke don't win this, Astralis have definitely fixed some of their fundamental problems, and I think Astralis have a lot more opportunities to fix those problems. We already know that analyst is definitely going to be working hard on that. But Schalke look like they could be a top three team.
Yeah. Well, our producer says that Astralis is going to win, but we know that our producer always says very weird things, and that's why we don't listen to him.
Yes,
Game 2, Vitality XL.
This one's going to actually be really brutal to watch. XL are
Yeah.
going to push the pedal to the metal, and I am going to already say this: watch jungle, because Dan has been so good at the moment in
Thank
this
you.
jungle. He's
Yeah.
maybe one
Yeah.
of the top four junglers at the moment in the LEC, and Skeens is going to get put to the absolute max. If he can have an okay game, this will be far more competitive. But
Okay,
yeah.
actually, just to cut in, you
Oh.
said top 3 junglers. Who are your top 5 junglers in like some form of coherent order? Just quickly, who would you list?
Uh, so Inspired is definitely up there
Okay.
for Rogue. God Gilius, of course.
Okay.
Dan has to be there.
Mm,
Then I think Yankos, even though they are having a weird time and Yankos isn't performing great, every
okay.
game, I'd say that. And you're saying top five. I'd probably actually go Zanzara on Astralis. I think he is
I
definitely some of the blood for that team.
I mean, I do love Zanzaro, but the fact that you've left out Self-Made and then El Yoya is enough to make
God.
some people mad. We're gonna
Uh,
leave you on that, right?
oh
We
well.
we're gonna
I'm
tie
okay
that
with
in. We're
this.
gonna write it in stone. Game 3, Misfits G2.
Self-made is on Fnatic, so there's always problems. G2.
Okay. Okay.
G2.
Game 4, Mad Lions Rogue.
Though I
I
wa-
agree on the G2 thing, by the
though
way.
I want Misfits to show up again. It's just unfortunate they're against another top three team.
Yeah. Okay. I can agree on that. Rogue Mad Lions.
Game of the week, right? This is game of the
I
day
agree.
for
Yeah.
Friday. I'm leaning on just results-based orientated thinking here, so I'm going with Rogue. But there are definitely a few different ways that Mad Lions can win this.
I'm going to stick with Rogue because I think we identified that whole idea of Mad Lions struggling to play from behind. I think this
Yeah.
might be a game where they can prove that
Oh,
that isn't the
absolutely.
case, but I think it's going to be difficult. Hansama, Kazi is going to be spicy. And Larson, the man who doesn't make mistakes against Humanoid, the man who can pop off, but at the same time can be the Hylissang of mid lane, is going to be an interesting showdown.
Yes.
Final one, Fnatic SK.
SK to win this one.
Okay.
Yeah. Honestly, I need to see a lot more from Fnatic. And
Yeah.
I've not been particularly impressed. Whereas actually, I've been surprised by by SK so far. Yes, SK have lost against Schalke, and they've lost against Rogue, and they've lost against G2. They are the top 3 teams. Their only other loss for SK is against XL, which was a banger of a game from XL. Like that was one of the cleanest games that we might have seen, and that was just because, let's be real here, Milky. XL got really far ahead and they pushed it to the absolute max. I expect actually SK to not fall behind so far against Fnatic, because Fnatic wants to put Pell to the medal. SK are the other team that want to put Pell to the medal. So it's going to be a bloody fast game.
I'm just going to say, I agree with you. I think Mad Lions Rogue is game of the week, but I think Fnatic SK will be the closest game of the week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fnatic's playstyle is just absolute conditioning for that.
Yeah. Well, that is most of the show done. The only thing left is the meta recap.
Oh. Hello, everybody, and now welcome back. We've just talked about Fnatic and SK and the fires that game will be, but before we do that, we need a recap and have a look at some of the spicy picks that we saw throughout this week's LEC Week 3 games. And Milky, what's the first one you would like to bring up for the audience?
You said cap. Hang on. Wait, no, I'm gonna go for the Ash ketchup look.
I didn't plan this.
It's
I'm
the
sorry.
recap cap.
Okay. He got his joke in. All right. Well, do you want to talk about the first champion that you're more interested in seeing?
LeBlanc.
Okay, we got to do this again. All right. Okay. What about LeBlanc? Obviously, we did see one appearance from LeBlanc this week, and it was in our first game of the day. It was Misfits versus XL, and Vithio brought that LeBlanc out. There's the context.
Okay, yeah. I won't bring any more. I want to see LeBlanc win, but it irritates MaskedSwan, so I will wait until LeBlanc wins to bring it up. Okay, a champion that I do want to talk about is Kalista.
Okay, so we did see Kalista have a showing this week. Obviously, Jezu played over on the side of SK. He played it in his first game versus Mad Lions, and they played it beautifully in this J4 kind of combo wombo. Similar to how we've actually seen Kalista in the past. She does need to get a very good head start in the early game. We saw Jezu go for the Immortal Shield Bow, and we could definitely start seeing a bit more Kalista if we have performances like this.
I want to play a game. We're going to go hot or not. I'm going to say champion.
Right.
You telling me if it's hot or if it's not.
All right. Am I judging the character themselves if they're hot or not, or am I judging if they're good in the meta or not? Because fashion, darling.
Oh, well, but then we'd have to go into skins and all of that, dear. So no, we're going to stay away from fashion, right? We're just going to talk about, like, is it a good thing? Can we see more of it? And if it is, will you be reacting to it like you see LeBlanc, or will you be reacting to it as like when you see Udyr? First one, Jarvan support, hot or not?
Hot.
Okay, I've kind of run out of champions here.
Quinn.
Tristana ADC. Okay, Quinn. We'll go Quinn first. Yes, Quinn.
Not. Do not do this. Quinn is not good. No, I'm sorry. Great for your solo queue. Do not play it in competitive play.
Okay, Tristana ADC, played by Kazi.
No. Play in the mid lane. Tristana is still great in the mid lane in certain matchups where you want to punish control mages, and you don't want to play the Lucian. I totally get it. Not as an ADC, she's still not quite there, and she's not offering a lot of teams what she needs. We are seeing it around the world. She is seeing a blip of play at the moment. I don't think it's in the spot. A lot of the time, if you can play Xayah, you should just play Xayah.
Ryze.
Love him. Great counter pick, or matching a pick against Twisted Fate at the moment. He also is really good at just offering or forcing pressure around the map. We saw this beautifully done by Caps on the G2 game. And I think you should definitely be seeing more Ryze, especially around globals.
Okay, I think we've got two more.
Okay.
Echo.
I love Echo. I will never not love Echo, even if I'm completely wrong. At the moment, we're seeing him to be counterpicked against. What do we see him in? Oh god, I should know this. Abadagi played it against Vithio. That's right. Really good game, really great against Syndra. I'd love to see it. His early game, obviously, Echo's early game against Syndra is horrible, but the second you hit 6 and you can actually go fully all in, it's really great. Especially if you can have a support slash mid laner who slash jungler who is able to come and assist you with a point and click stun like Pantheon.
I'd say Seraphine, but we already talked about it. We're going to go Skarner, hot or not.
Love Skarner. I love this. Skarner should be seeing more play.
Captain Flowers.
He's great in solo queue. By the way, he's actually free elo at the moment. If you don't want to learn how to play Udyr, learn how to play Skarner, because he will give you free elo. And if you've got a support main player who can play Thresh and give you lanterns, it doesn't actually matter how good your Thresh is. As long as they can throw a lantern and you can grab that lantern, you're going to get some free kills. Captain Flowers apparently heard you and tried to interject into your webcam, but was
This
not
is why I
allowed.
didn't bring up Seraphine. This is why I didn't talk about Seraphine, okay? Right.
Fair.
Penultimate one before we talk about the new patch that's coming and how it will affect the meta.
Yeah.
Volibear, hot or not?
If you're Bwippo, it's hot. Everybody else, probably not.
I wanted you to say that. I so wanted you to say that. Okay, final one. The meta recap cap, hot or not?
You know what? It's growing on me. I'll say it's hot. I'll say it's hot. I'll
Nice.
say it's hot, darling.
I was actually going to take it off if you said it wasn't hot. So
No,
it's staying
you're
on
okay.
now. It's staying on for the rest. No. Okay, new patch coming up. What's it going to mean for the meta? What's going away? What's no longer hot? What will become hot?
So I think if anyone's really interested to learn fully about what's happening, just go and watch LS's video on the meta recap. He actually does a really good analysis. He actually has to pause his own recap analysis mid-recap so he can have post-edited LS come in and explain why he was wrong about, well, not wrong, but he didn't clarify well enough. This patch is going to be huge. The most important thing, ladies and gentlemen, you need to take away from this is Gore Drinker is gutted to the place that it is at the moment, which, frankly, needed to happen. And everybody, our producer just shouted in our ears of yes. Olaf is no longer going to see play in the jungle. He can still see play in the jungle, except in very specific circumstances when Olaf is good. We're not going to just see blind Olafs being played. The same thing will also go for an Acton. So all you sinners out there, yeah, you can stop sinning, even though you were sinning all through patch 10 and now we're in 11, you're still sinning. You're probably still going to be able to find it. We're going to be seeing a huge change from a lot of champions in the jungle, a lot of champions in the top lane. I expect these meta to completely change. We're already starting to see a bit of it in solo queue, and a champion I'd like our ladies and gentlemen out there, if we see a game, I'm making the cool thing of I think we could. Fiddlesticks might be seeing play against a lot of these more farming AP junglers, against like Talia. Fiddlesticks actually excels because of his Q, his silence ability. Doesn't have a great time versus Skarner, which is something we're already seeing play. Doesn't have a great time versus Udyr, because Udyr gets silenced and then goes, but I'm still already in my stance. You fear me away. Okay, I built in tenacity. I'm gonna just come back at you. It's fine by me. We also might start seeing a bit more Nocturne because he never used Gore Drinker for his clear or anything. So Nocturne could also be seeing a bit more play. We're going to see a bit more diversity in the jungle meta, which I actually think is a really good thing.
Okay. And that...
I can bring up... So... Last bit,
Ooh.
and I love to talk about the presence rate when we're on these patches, because I think it's a really important thing to bring up just so we're aware of what keeps seeing play, and then we can make note of it when we go into this next week. Olaf and Renekton have 100% presence. That makes total sense. But Twisted Fate and Talia aren't necessarily so much affected coming into this patch. I expect them to still see a very high rate of play. Rel and Gragas are also pretty high up there, about 70% presence. I'd expect that to only keep ballooning as we go into this next patch because they are just seeing more and more play and the champions are so good. Kai'Sa is obviously still going to say 100%, though her kit did get I do believe she gets impacted a little bit by the item changes that happen in this.
The mirror nerf.
Samira's going to drop off, but Samira had already been dropping off because a lot of the pros just weren't good at her, especially after... No, because Samira requires you to basically do what a lot of mid laners did when Zoe came out. You have to dedicate yourself to this champion. Samira was so good, anyone could get wins with her, and then she got kind of gutted to a place of acceptance, but the Balance team weren't happy with that. Fair enough. She was very still good in high elo solo queue as well as also in professional play. But no one really fully committed, and it's probably a good thing because we're not going to see any more Samira for a while. She is not going to be in the meta. I would actually more expect to see probably Yone or Yasuo back in the bot lane before we see a Samira. I'm joking a little bit about this. I'm being a bit facetious, but it's not going to be good for the girl with many guns.
Okay, and that is the meta recap. Done. It's done. Okay, Thank you, everyone, very much for tuning in. I've been Milky Cereal, joined by the wonderful MaskedSwan. We'll be back next week. More eLECtric recap action, talking about more games, talking about how G2 Rogue played. That's happening as well this week, by the
I'm
way.
so excited.
And we'll leave you with the knowledge that I have a 100% win rate on LeBlanc in solo queue, and G2 have signed me up to replace Caps just so LeBlanc can get a win in the LEC. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.